Hello, and welcome to LG News, Libby and Gabe News. Today's story is about the Zambezi River. Could we, as a society, run out of fresh water? Not all fresh water is equally available. Around the world, many people already face water shortages. Reports are warning of a growing risk of widespread water stress due to environmental change, population growth, and increased water demand for energy creation and agriculture. Water has caused a lot of tension and conflict historically and has the potential to increase geopolitical friction. Although the Zambezi River has abundant total water flow, current management, which is dominated by hydropower flow control rather than coordinated ecosystem based allocation, isn't fully sustainable and carries high ecological and social costs. Basin wide cooperative governance that prioritizes environmental flows and water quality is the most effective approach moving forward. Without stronger cooperation and efficiency, water stress will increase because even small water withdrawals and flow regulation can have great impacts on the river's long term sustainability. And now over to Libby in the field.
Thanks, Gabe. Out here in Africa, it's pretty warm, gets up to pretty hot temperatures, and I'm going to share with you some basic facts. It is the fourth largest river in Africa, about 1,600 miles long. It starts on the Central African Plateau in a town called, Mwintiluga. It is home to hippos, crocodiles, elephants, buffalo, lions, antelope, and numerous bird species, and lots of fish, as you can tell, because it is a very gargantuan river. It is, because of its giant size, it's also great for whitewater rafting, canoeing, river cruises, fishing, and game viewing. It flows through 6 countries: the Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, before discharging into the Indian Ocean. Some of its primary uses are: it provides water for over 32 million people who live in its watershed, and provides the water for all agriculture, but it also has 2 major dams used for hydroelectricity generation in Southern African Development Community. The Kariba Dam provides power to Zambia and Zimbabwe. The Korabasa Dam provides power to Mozambique and South Africa. These dams impact sediment and floods, which show some of the drawbacks of dams, but the hydroelectric power is very important to the country. Back to Gabe.
Thanks, Libby. The river is managed by the Zambezi River Authority, also known as the ZRA, which is a corporation that's jointly and equally owned by the governments of Zambia and Zimbabwe. It was established on October 1st, 1987, as a successor to the Central African Power Corporation, also known as CAPCO. It's governed by a 4-person council that consists of the ministers of energy and finance from both Zambia and Zimbabwe. Their main job is to operate, monitor, and take care of the use of the Kariba Dam, but they also look into the pros and cons of constructing new ones on the Zambezi River, and when they do, they monitor those as well. Lastly, they make recommendations to ensure the Zambezi River is being used efficiently. Onto the water budget. The Zambezi River has a cumulative average annual water flow of approximately 97 billion cubic meters. In 2024, about 0.37 billion cubic meters was abstracted from the river for use by non-hydropower activities upstream of the Kariba Dam. That means that only 2% of its water is abstracted for non-hydropower use, and yet communities still face shortages. Ecosystems are still disrupted, and fisheries and floodplain farming still suffer. Why? Because that other 98% of water is being put through dams on the river, which illustrates how water stress can occur without physical water removal. Management and flow regulation matter more than simple raw volume. This means that because hydropower controls 98% of the water use on the Zambezi River, dam managers effectively decide when floods happen, when environmental flows happen, and how much water reaches downstream users. Moving on to the health of the river. Based on the 2024 annual report from the ZRA, The Zambezi River has an average temperature of around 35 degrees Celsius, which is the equivalent of 95 degrees Fahrenheit, across all 4 seasons. It has a pH distribution between 6 and 9. It also has a suspended solids distribution of around 100 milligrams per liter for all stations except one in December, which is due to erosion and sediment transportation that usually occurs during the rainy season. However, that isn't all. The river has higher electric conductivity, salinity, and TDS at places like the Kambopo River as a result of nearby mining activities. Here's Libby to tell you more about how humans can impact the river.
Thanks, Gabe. Now we talk about some of the human impacts on the Zambezi. One example of human impact is poor land management around the river, mostly by indigenous farmers in the region, have led to extreme erosion and much sedimentation, which is terrible for the Zambezi. And also, some water isn't properly filtered before being released back into the river, so that causes sewage problems, and it can lead to the spread of diseases like chloria, typhoid, and dysentery. A current example of this is earlier this year in March, a Chinese mining company produced an acid spill that has been seen 60 miles downstream of the river that has affected millions. Some of those people are farmers who have to use this water for their plants in their farms. Farmers recently have had problems with crop failure, reduced crop yields, food insecurity, shortages, less available water for livestock, more competition and conflict over the remaining water supply. And it's not just affecting the farmers, it's affecting everyday households with longer traveling distance just to get water, increasing physical burdens for women and children. This could lead to people reverting back to contaminated water out of desperation, which isn't good for anybody. That would be terrible because it would decrease in the public health for everybody to use these and could transmit a lot more waterborne illnesses. This will affect people with their hydration and their sanitation, effects of education time for women and girls because they are now trekking distances to get water farther and farther away. This also affects indigenous communities. It can erode cultural knowledge and farming traditions carried over generations because of the sudden changes. Income declining for those who fish for a living, long-lasting social impacts due to displacement, flooding, building, etc. This also is terrible for just industry in general, with less water going to the dams to power, interrupted manufacturing processes, commercial irrigation, and commercial livestock water supply. And because of this, tourism will go down astronomically, which will affect the economy terribly. These impacts affect everybody, from countries to the people, the governments, and creates conflicts in between these countries that share this river. More info with Gabe on that. Gabe?
Thanks, Libby. Now, let's talk about some conflicts that have happened over the Zambezi River. Between the 17th and 19th centuries, Portugal and Britain came into conflict over the Zambezi Valley, which at the time was a hub for gold and slave trades. Eventually, this led to an 1891 agreement that established the colonial frontiers that define the region's borders today. In the 1950s, there was a conflict between Zambia and Zimbabwe over the borders after Lake Kariba was created by damming the river. The original treaty had said that the border followed the middle line of the river, but now that it was a lake, it was unclear if it followed the middle of the lake or the old river basin, which was now deep underwater. In addition, when Lake Kariba was created, it forced over 57,000 Tonga people out of their homes, which caused a loss of cultural land and families. Overall, there are many different tensions about water use, because upstream decisions, in the end, affect those downstream from them. Dam building and releasing water from those dams can affect people by causing floods and can affect fish populations due to changing temperatures and changing water flows. However, these problems aren't impossible to solve. Over to Libby to discuss some solutions.
Thanks, Gabe. There are many solutions that have been tried, proposed, and some failed, but one of them is in the 1980s, the ZAC Plan, Zambezi River System Action Plan, NEPT, United Nations Environmental Program, led multinational strategy to make
a cooperative approach to water use planning among basin countries, early political changes, limited to implementation, less specific plan. July 13th, 2004, ZAMCOM, Zambezi Watercourse Commission, formal agreement between eight riparian countries, Angola, Botswana, Monia, Zambike, Namibia, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, made to cooperatively manage the basin's shared water resources, focused location, specific plan. Some conservation solutions were in the lower Zambezi, the monopools. It is a massive wildlife sanctuary alongside the Zambezi with many different parts, including game/safari management, commercial land conservancies. The Zimbabwe component is also a World Heritage Site with implied wildlife movement through the area, supported by African Development Bank, works to restore forests, strengthen climate resilience, and enhance ecosystem protection against the basin. Environmental flows, technological efforts that decide timing, quantity, water releases from dams in order to sustain wetlands and downstream ecosystems. And finally, some technological infrastructure solutions are hydropower projects, dams, not technically direct solutions to environmental harm, but they still majorly shape river management.
Those are some good solutions, but we picked the best ones just for you.
Touchdown! Oh, I didn't see it there.
Hey there!
In conclusion, the Zambezi River isn't running out of water in terms of volume, but current management just makes its use unsustainable. Hydropower-dominated flow control, along with weak coordination and declining water quality, threaten both ecosystems and communities.
But a stronger basin-wide cooperation and ecosystem-based management are essential to reduce future water stress and protect the river long-term. Can I come inside? It's a little cold.
Sure, why don't you just come in through the door?
No, that's okay.
Whoa, how'd you get here?
Just popped in.
Let's talk about some expected effects and trade-offs of these proposed suggestions. To start, you're going to have improved ecological health, with more natural flow patterns that help the local wildlife, and reduced habitat degradation downstream from dams.
It's more sustainable hydropower in the long term. Reduced extreme flow fluctuations and healthier ecosystems help maintain reservoir capacity by reducing sediment buildup.
You're going to have increased water security for all basin countries by joint planning that improves drought and flood preparedness across borders, and better data sharing that leads to more reliable water allocation during drier years.
It also reduces conflict between countries. Shared governance mechanisms increase transparency and trust, and disputes over water allocation are more likely to be resolved diplomatically. Here are some of the trade-offs.
First, you're going to have reduced short-term hydropower flexibility, which just means that prioritizing environmental flows over pure profit could limit peak power generation at some times, and countries that rely on hydropower revenue could face some short-term economic losses.
Complex governance and slow decision-making. Reaching a consensus among multiple countries with different priorities can be time-consuming, and enforcement of agreements may be uneven due to political or financial constraints.
You're going to have higher upfront costs as well because monitoring systems, scientific assessments, and coordination bodies require a lot more funding than just sticking with what you've had.
Unequal distribution of benefits. Upstream countries may feel that they bear more costs, while downstream countries gain more ecological benefits, and power imbalances between countries can complicate negotiations. Fixing the Zambezi will not be easy.
But by following these proposed solutions and working together, countries can find a way to protect the river that they've known and loved for years and keep it alive for centuries to come.
And that's LG News. Libby Gop.
Libby and Gabe.
Same thing.